Welcome to the Check Your Head podcast, the podcast where notable musicians and experts come and share their stories and solutions for mental health and wellness. I'm your host, Mari Fong, a music journalist and life coach for musicians, and today is National Best Friends Day, June 8th, and what better artist to feature but a musical duo who have stuck by each other through thick and thin, and have also collaborated with musical friends such as Zed, Bia, and Illenium, and toured with mega pop artist Selena Gomez. Our featured guests today are Ruby Carr and Natalia Panzarella of the alt-pop duo Bahari. These best friends have recently released 2 singles, one called Bipolar, a mood disorder that Natalia lives with, and the other single called Jackie Kennedy, about the loss of Natalia's boyfriend to an accidental opioid overdose. Natalia and Ruby also share how they've helped each other through depression and panic attacks and their solutions, and also introduces us to the Luke Love Foundation, created in the name of Natalia's boyfriend Luke, and the foundation's fight against opioid addiction. Later, we'll be featuring a clip of Bahari's song Jackie Kennedy, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Next, Kat Jensen and I talk about journaling and how it can be a fun, creative, and therapeutic way to express your emotions, and how the medication naloxone, or Narcan, can easily be used to quickly save a life during an opioid overdose. But first, let's hear Natalia and Ruby of Bahari share their story.
I'm Ruby. I'm Natalia.
First of all, congratulations on your 2 new singles. One is called Bipolar, and the other one is called Jackie Kennedy. And a little fun fact is that Bahari means the ocean in Swahili. And Ruby, you're from Kenya.
Yes, I am from Kenya. And we came up with that name. We were hanging out and she was asking me to teach her Swahili words. And she was like, what does the ocean mean? I was like, Bahari. And she was like, wait, that's it. We should just call ourselves that. I was like, okay.
Who doesn't love the ocean, right?
Exactly. We both grew up so far away from each other on separate sides of the planet, but both of us grew up by the ocean and on the beach. That's something that we had in common when we met. We were just like, oh, let's go to the beach. And so it's something that brought us together.
Very nice. And you guys got together when you were 14, I read.
16.
Oh, 16. Okay. Yeah. Well, I want to start with the single Bipolar because it speaks about the ups and downs of a relationship. But I've heard that Natalia, you have bipolar, and Ruby, you have anxiety as far as mood disorders. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we both have struggled with all sorts of mood disorders our whole life. And so I think we both have anxiety. And the song is just something that we wanted, especially the 2 songs together, we wanted to be more vulnerable and open with our audience and just write from the heart. And at first we weren't sure if we wanted to put these songs out. It's quite intimidating to be so vulnerable. But then we started playing them live and we were just like, you know what, I feel like these songs were so cathartic to write for us. And so if we can share that with anyone else, that's all that we really want out of our music.
Yeah, I think there's a really good feeling to let all of that go and then also to give it to others, because there's something wonderful about music that you not only capture the energy of the artist, but also the lyric can really speak to your fans. Yeah. But you said that you both have suffered mood disorders throughout your life. And oftentimes something like depression can be sort of an umbrella over a lot of different conditions. What are some of the things that you've experienced beyond, let's say, anxiety and bipolar?
We both have struggled with depression since we've met each other. It was something that we really bonded over, actually, when we first started writing music. And it's why we became so close. I wasn't really fitting in my high school, and she had just moved here and was completely by herself. And we were both really struggling with that. After putting out our first song, Wild Ones, that was about finding each other and helping each other get through depression. After putting it out and seeing people's reaction and knowing that there was a community out there that understood and that we could write to and ended up becoming friends with a lot of those people, and it made it all worth it.
Yeah, and I think, when you're struggling through any mental health thing, for us, we're really lucky that we have music and songwriting as an outlet. That's really why we became so close at first, is when we were writing Wild Ones. We didn't really say it at the time, but the lyrics of that song are about struggling with depression and feeling alone and feeling really vulnerable. And so once we wrote that together, we were like, oh, there's a way for us to get through this. And that's just by putting down our feelings on paper and recording them and sharing it with other people. And yeah, it's a very special feeling.
I'm glad you're doing that, because sometimes people will look at us from the outside and everything looks so nice and great on the outside, especially with social media. People post all of these wonderful pictures, but they may not post the times where they're feeling down or they're feeling embarrassed or ashamed about something. And I just find that when people do that, that people really do respond to that. They're like, oh, thank goodness someone else feels that way.
Yeah, definitely.
We're always trying to be as open as we can be on Instagram and all of our other social media accounts, because when you hear someone else having a bad day, just go, okay, I can get through it too. And it wasn't just me. And it makes me feel a lot better when I see our artists that I look up to just being open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's important, because I think especially with young people, if they're afraid to talk about it, hearing people they admire or artists that they feel maybe are just like untouchable, speaking about real world things, they feel like, wow, they're just like me, or we do have something in common. And there's a sense of relaxation about that and just feeling good,
Yeah.
Well, I want to start with the bipolar, because I think a lot of people are curious about that and want to understand it better. But first of all, can you explain when you started getting symptoms, like how old you were and what was that experience like?
Always diagnosed with manic depression my whole life. So I was completely unaware until my adult life, until I started going to get help, until I was accepting that for myself and wanting that. And then when I learned and got educated on those things, I was like, okay, this is normal. And there are a lot of tools for me to help myself and not have a panic attack or not go into a depressive state. And I didn't know that. So for me, it's just been over the past year, really learning a lot about myself and hopefully being able to communicate that with other people that are going through it.
So with manic depression, are there phases of like mania for you where you just have a lot of excitement, a lot of confidence, and then periods of depression? How does that work for you?
It's hard. I mean, it's difficult, especially with touring and having to work and do things that I love so much and wanting to be my best in those situations. But honestly, for me, having Ruby get me through so many of those things, just having a person that I love, that I don't want to let down, that I want to do great for, has really been one of the things that has helped me focus and get through a lot.
Also, we spend so much time together. First of all, like we live together, we tour together, we share hotel rooms, we spend a lot of time together. And sometimes I think it takes someone from an outside perspective to be able to identify certain things, because for Natalia, at a certain point in your life, you just kind of accept that's who you are, instead of realizing that, oh, this is something that I can work on and get help for, and that this is an actual disorder that is not her fault. And so having someone to talk to about that, and someone to be like, okay, this is what's going on right now. We know how to deal with these situations. Let's sit down, let's take 5, let's take a break, to be able to identify that with her when she can't do that sometimes. We're really lucky that we have each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that bond between both of you. And to be able to rely on each other is really a wonderful thing, and to understand each other. Now, Natalia, this is a quote that I read. It said, "It's okay to feel sad, but it's really fucking scary feeling alone." Can you tell me when you felt so isolated, where it was fucking scary for you?
Yeah, I think 2 years ago, when I was really experiencing some symptoms for the first time, or having full episodes where I would have depressive months for the first time. I had never experienced that before. It was really isolating because I had no idea what was going on. So that was probably the hardest part of my life. And then expressing that to Ruby, expressing that to people around me that loved me and were able to understand, it just really opened up a whole new perspective for me. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And other people need to know that they can do this. And having people around you that support you and understand, if you can trust them to communicate it, it's a beautiful thing. And it's what got me through it.
Well, that's really brave of you, because I know sometimes with depression, just to communicate is difficult. And sometimes you feel so unlike yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel really unmotivated, like you don't want to do anything. Yeah. Was there anything in particular that happened that made you reach out to find help and to try to solve what's going on with you?
Just everything in our life at that time. My parents were divorcing. I had just lost a boyfriend. He had an overdose, and I kind of went into a shock after that. There was like a whole year where I didn't really feel anything. I was having trouble writing music, and I was just working. It was just like, go, go, go. I was so young, so just maturing, my brain developing. I was like, you need to process everything that you've actually gone through. And after doing that, that's what was really helpful for me.
For both of you, if you've experienced depression or a mood disorder, what was it that got you through it besides the support of your friends and family? Was it therapy? Was it medication? Was it meditation? There's so many different solutions out there, and it's really important to find the one that fits for you.
Yeah, it's very important. And, we both tried a lot of different things to try, and we still are working on it. We're still trying. I wish that we could easily say that there's a solution for everything, but it's very depending on who you are as a person and what works best for you. We both deal with things very differently, which is really funny and we both understand that. So if I'm going through something very difficult, I've started doing therapy, and that's been very helpful. But where I came from and where I grew up, mental health is not something that's spoken about. And it took me moving here and talking to Natalia, who was quite open about the conversation with me, for me to really think about it and realize, because at the time I hadn't ever even thought about it. I just thought that's just who I was. I was just a sad person. And actually being able to open that conversation and realize, and speak to doctors and have people tell me something, I was like, okay, maybe this is more serious than I think it is. And so to be able to do my research and read about it, to be able to understand the problem, made me more comfortable with it and made me want to work on myself and get better, And I think therapy has been very helpful for both of us. We both do it every week. It's our sacred time, or it's in the calendar where we can't book anything else during that time. We're doing our therapy. And for me personally, reading books about my mental health situations has been helpful. I'm a person who likes to understand what's going on. And I feel like it's a lot less scary when you know how it works, and it's not this daunting thing that's happening to you. It's something that you can learn about, you can read about it so that you understand how it works, and so that you can go about fixing it for yourself,
Yeah, for me, therapy works. I tried medication. Currently, I'm not doing that, and I'm trying to do meditation and exercises. And that's just what I think is best for me for now. And I don't know what will be in the future, but that's what I've been doing. And I do the 3 things I can hear, 3 things I can see, and 3 things that I feel. I know it sounds weird. When my therapist will give me exercises, I'm always like, okay, sure. But you have to find the ones that click with you. And for me, that one really, really helps. I'll be on the floor, okay, and I just go through it in my head, and it really brings me back. And that's just one thing that works for me.
Yeah, so that's all about not only being self-aware, but also being present. It forces your mind to really think about, what do I have right in front of me? What am I currently feeling right now? And being present is also really important for appreciation and gratitude, because they say we can't change our past and the future is untold, but everything that we do at this moment is building for our future and also creating our realities.
Definitely.
But Ruby, you mentioned reading a book about learning more about your condition. What book was that about?
That book was about, I don't remember the exact name, but it was about identifying the moments being able to catch yourself before you fall into a dark place, or being able to identify the symptoms right before a panic attack so that you know that it's coming, or being able to understand why that happens and what your mind is going through in that process. And so it was very interesting for me to learn about
the science of what your brain goes through.
The science of how your brains go through certain things, and how childhood traumas can affect that, and how going through separation at a young age from your family can affect that. You know, for me, I read it and I identified the reasons behind why that can happen. And it also explains how, you know, some people are just born with a chemical imbalance in your brain and that it's not your fault. And that was something that was hard for me to accept at first. It was like, oh, why am I feeling like this? Why am I getting stressed and anxiety about going for a walk outside, you know? And that's just something that really helped me, is to identify the tools to be able to help myself get out of something like that.
You mentioned panic attacks, both of you did, and that is something pretty common for musicians. I've had quite a few artists come on the program and talk about panic attacks and talk about different ways to stop that cycle of anxiety to get to a point of a panic attack. What have you both personally learned as far as how to deal with those, and maybe even try to stop those in their tracks if that's possible?
I mean, yeah, there's not a perfect answer, and I feel like not all of them, for me, I'm learning, can be stopped. So sometimes you have to just take a moment or a day to yourself. But yeah, definitely the exercises are incredibly helpful. And
can you describe an exercise that you would do for a panic attack?
There's a thing called tapping. And so you tap all of your senses and you can repeat things over again. I don't have anxiety about this. This is going to be okay. There's all different types of things that you can do that I'm learning. And sometimes I'll be like, I don't know if that works for me. And sometimes I'm like, okay, yeah, that actually like really helped. I did not believe it would, but I came out of it and I can like see clearly again and communicate my feelings again.
Yeah, and I feel like people get told this a lot when they're having a panic attack or anxiety. Oh, just breathe. And you're like, I am breathing. But it is very helpful to work on breathing exercises. At least for me personally, I've noticed that when I am having a panic attack or when I have anxiety, I forget to breathe deeply. And that can be very helpful, is counting to 20 and just taking very deep breaths and holding your breath for 10 seconds and then doing it again over and over again can seriously calm me down. And one thing that I also learned that's helpful is identifying when I'm having a panic attack, because sometimes when you're in that moment, you don't realize what's going on because everything's really intense at the time. And so being able to stop yourself and be like, okay, I'm having a panic attack right now. What am I going to do about it? I'm going to go outside, I'm going to take a second to myself, and I'm going to breathe for 20 seconds. And if that doesn't work, you just have to go through the motions and be able to feel it and to know that it's actually okay to feel that way. And sometimes people are like, oh, what can you do to stop it? And sometimes you can't stop it, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had a panic attack, but I've heard that it almost feels like you're dying. Like, it's so frightening. And I've also had people say that they will have an out-of-body experience. Well, they actually see themselves on stage or something like that. So that's the part that's always confusing, is these things that happen, and how did that happen and where did that come from?
Yeah, it's so interesting learning about it, because it can be the smallest of things that'll trigger something like that, or it could be something that's a really big deal to you, and it could be anything, you know? And for me, I always get very scared of having panic attacks because I have asthma, and when I have a panic attack and my breathing, and then I get really freaked out, and then that makes it like 10 times worse. And so that's why the breathing exercises really help me. But, you know, panic attacks can be different for everyone, and they have a range. They can be really intense, or it can just be completely internal, where you're just like frozen and you're not actually physically having symptoms of a panic attack, but internally you're really having one. And so those are the most difficult ones, because you could be sitting at dinner or backstage at a show and you're internally completely freaking out and everyone thinks everything's fine, but you're like, no, like, I'm not okay right now.
It's really isolating. Yeah.
It's very scary. And, you know, we both experience that. And again, we keep saying it, but we're so lucky that we have each other, because we know we can give each other a look and we're like, okay, everyone leave the room, or Natalia needs 5 seconds, or give Ruby some space right now, And so I think that can be very helpful, because when you're going through something like that, it's very difficult to advocate for yourself.
The discussion of mental health is really reaching so many people now, and it's way easier to go to your friend and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. And if I need a second, I'm going to need a second. And I feel like people are way more understanding, are open to understand now. And it's much easier to find somebody that will be your person and help you get through that, or have a lot of people that will help you get through that.
Yeah, I think even if people don't understand exactly what you're going through, just having the compassion and saying, I want to help you. What can I do to help? Just those words of empathy really can make a difference.
You don't even need them to do anything. You just need them to not judge, And I think the compassion is such a big thing. And more people are really becoming open to that, especially after COVID. A lot of people are struggling right now with their mental health and becoming more understanding.
Yes, I agree. You had a tour that was planned called the Group Therapy Tour, which is really an awesome name. How is it that you are able to keep up your mental health while you're on tour?
It's not easy. It's definitely a huge toll on your physical body and on your emotional well-being, because it's exhausting. You're driving around all day. You're staying up really late every night. You're not getting proper food and nutrients and rest. And for me, what makes it all so worth it is meeting people and playing shows. It's so scary right before you do it, but then as soon as you're on stage and you're in front of your people and your fans who know your music, it makes it so worth it. And just trying to maintain a schedule is very difficult when you're on tour, because you're all over the place and you just kind of wake up, you don't know where you are, you don't know what city you're in, and then you just go for it. But especially on the Group Therapy Tour, we were opening for Elohim, and she's an artist that we greatly look up to, and she's very open about her mental health, and meeting her fans who are the same way was just an incredible experience for us, because they really inspired us to put out those songs that we wanted to put out, because we played it on that tour, and they were like, this song made me feel this way, or this song made me feel that way. And we were like, okay, we want to share that with everyone else who wasn't on the tour,
Yeah. You did talk about the challenges of being on tour, all the highs and lows. You're on this high playing to all these people that are cheering for you, and then the quiet moments where you're just on the tour bus. But it does take work. I mean, you talk about how therapy is important. Do you do therapy on tour, like through computer or phone call, or how does that work?
For me, my therapist is really flexible, and that's something that helps my anxiety a lot, because I am always nervous about changing my schedule or letting people down. So she will just let me call or FaceTime or whatever is like easiest for me to just have the conversation. And that was something that finding in a therapist was such a relief for me and really helpful.
Yeah. For me, this is just a tool I use. I write everything down, like I journal a lot. You'll spend 8 hours a day on the bus, and I will literally sit there for 8 hours a day just writing everything that I'm feeling and thinking onto my journal. And I think that's really helpful for me, because sometimes when you think things over and over again, it doesn't feel real. But if you put it down on paper, that's a real feeling that you had, and it validates that. And so that's been very helpful for me on tours. No matter what I'm feeling, whether that's stress or anger or being lonely or whatever it is, I just scribble it down in my journal.
Ruby, I saw your journal in one of the videos that you have.
Yeah, of course, the YouTube series that we did.
Right. Gosh, you are a great artist.
Thank you.
The sketches you've put together throughout the years are so beautiful. And I saw that you had written in it also, almost like it was an artist's diary or something.
I'm very vigilant about them. I think drawing is something that's very healing for me, because most of them I don't show anyone apart from Natalia, and be like, look at this weird thing that I drew today.
Like, I want it.
So it's a feeling of emotional release, if that makes sense. And I fill those books up. I mean, I have so many of them. We have a box full of them in our house. And it's something that's very helpful to me. And some of them, whatever you're feeling, whether that's really dark thoughts or really happy things, like you can just let it out. And that's something that's been helpful to me.
I think that's the key thing there is letting it out. And I've done journaling myself. And I think what it is that when we put how we feel into something else, whether it's journaling or music, the lyrics, the melodies, maybe something that we paint, it gives those emotions respect.
Yeah.
And once it's out, there's almost a sense of relief. Yeah. Like your body, not that it's rid of it, but it's releasing it. Yeah, it's releasing it.
It lets it go from you holding it in internally, and that's something that I always think about when I'm writing it down. I'm like, this is just for me. This is my personal journal. No one's going to look at this. I can say whatever I want. No one's going to judge me. This is a relationship I have between myself and myself. And so I can say anything I want. And I don't have to worry about anyone being involved with that. It's a form of letting go of whatever you've been holding on to.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing I want to talk about is something that a lot of people have gone through, especially during the pandemic. People have lost loved ones. People have lost partners. And I know, Natalia, you mentioned that you lost your boyfriend to a drug overdose. And with that comes a lot of emotions, some of them not even expected. How did you respond to something that was so shocking to you? You mentioned that for about a year you were numb. I could expect that there would be a depression. But I was reading in one of your songs, I think it was Jackie Kennedy, where you said something about, I'm so sorry it was you. And it almost felt like you had a sense of guilt or something. And that is an emotion that can happen after somebody passes away. What was going on with that?
For me personally, I loved him so much, and he was such an incredible person, but it was a struggle that he couldn't see past. And it was a struggle I didn't know about for most of our relationship. So that was a big shockwave for me to find everything out. And yeah, I decided to take a break from him because I was very young, and I do think that that's what was best for him at the time. But I wasn't with him when he passed, and so there was guilt there, for sure. But I don't think me staying would have helped, because so many people were trying to persuade him to believe in himself and to do the right thing. And he really was for a while, and a lot of people's efforts did work, and there was so much love for him.
I'm sorry to hear about that. And it's a love that's going to stay with you and hopefully inspire you. And it's definitely inspired your music. But you mentioned about drugs, and oftentimes in music, it seems that it could be there, right? Yeah. Drinking or doing drugs to help relax, whatever the reasons are. Have you ever had to deal with something where substance abuse was something that was personal to you or somebody close to you?
It is sad to say it, but it's definitely something that's true in the world of music. We have a lot of friends who are very dependent on certain substances, and it's scary to watch, especially after losing someone that's very close. And it's very sad how many incredibly talented, amazing artists that this world has lost to drug abuse. And that's something that was a big wake-up call to Natalia and I. There's a lot of people within our circle or people that we've looked up to that have lost their lives to that. And so that's something that we've always wanted to stay away from. But at the same time, I can understand how working in the music industry and living a life as an artist, you can have those tendencies. It's a very difficult subject because, Natalia lost Luke to it, but we've lost a couple of friends or people in our circle to that, especially in LA. There's a lot of really young, talented kids that have sadly lost their lives to it.
Yeah. And it's a difficult conversation, but there isn't just like a no more, it's not going to stop. And that's why we're working really closely with the Luke Love Foundation, which is who this Jackie Kennedy song is about. And they are working closely to supply Narcan to a lot of households so that things like that don't happen.
Yeah. So it's the medication or drug that's given to you at a hospital if you have an overdose. And that can save a lot of people's lives. If Luke had it, it would have saved his life, or if someone around him had it, it would have saved his life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that we strongly believe in. A lot of people in LA or anywhere in the world that are in certain circles, lots of people do drugs and lots of young people do drugs. It would just be beneficial for everyone to
be educated.
To be educated about it and understand that there are ways where you can save someone's life, and just opening that conversation and letting people know that there are tools. You can reach out, you can get help, you can go to group meetings, you can go to therapy, and all of those things are very helpful when you have substance abuse issues.
I'm glad you brought that up because I am familiar with Narcan. I worked with an organization called Homeless Healthcare Los Angeles, and they would give out free kits of Narcan. In fact, the girl that I talked with, she had overdosed twice. And twice she was saved by Narcan. And basically it's just a shot that you could just put in someone's leg, and immediately it will stop the effects of the overdose. Mm-hmm. So if you have a friend or family member, someone you love that has substance abuse, keep it with you, keep it in your household, just in case. I mean, no one wants to think of that, but we also have to be realistic, right?
Exactly. That's what we mean by that, is no one wants to think, oh, I'm going to have a party. Oh, I should have Narcan in the fridge just in case. But
you don't want that to be around you, but unfortunately it's around. You never know. Yeah. And it's just a good thing to be educated on and to have, just so you never know.
I mean, this is a really strange analogy, but where I come from, there's a lot of snakes everywhere, and everyone in their house has an anti-venom in their fridge. And overdoses are an accident. No, some people do it on purpose, but most of the time it's a mistake. And if you have the opportunity to have that available to you, everyone should take that. Hopefully this foundation is something that we're really looking forward to working with, and we want to try and get it as much sponsorship as possible so that they can give out to a lot of people to just have it in their home.
Just normalize the conversation, mm-hmm. get everybody educated on it, and hopefully prevent that as much as possible.
It's called the Luke Love Foundation. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so Luke's mom, Sheila Scott, started it in his name. It originally was for grieving mothers. She wrote a poem book, and a lot of mothers came forward to give her support. And she created such a beautiful community. It was such an open environment with people talking about their experiences and what they knew. And that's how she learned about Narcan and how to get that into her foundation and start educating and helping other people. So it's been really incredible to see somebody go through one of the hardest things a woman can go through and try to help others. It's just been really inspiring.
Well, I'm going to put that on our website, which is checkyourheadpodcast.com. We have over 100 organizations and foundations and clinics and telehealth and chat lines and text lines, ways for people to get mental help when they need it. Because sometimes when you're in the middle of grieving, sometimes you don't feel like you have the energy to look, to research and find, what's going to work for you. So hopefully this is a way where people can just go on the website and just try different things. So I will be sure to put the Luke Love Foundation on our website so people can look into that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You have the 2 singles that you've dropped, which I really love. Does that mean that you're planning on dropping an EP or an album soon?
Yeah, during COVID, we've been locked up at home. And so we've been writing a lot of music, and we're really hopeful that we'll make a full body of all of that and put it together. And so, yeah, we're really looking forward to that. It's not finished yet, but it's definitely on its way.
Well, that brings me to a question about COVID, because we've all been in this situation that is really not normal. And a lot of people we're in our homes, and maybe with a small group of people, maybe just one other person, maybe by ourselves. What are some of the daily routines that you have to keep up your mental health?
We've been just trying to mix it up as much as possible, which gets difficult, but just trying a new takeout place and sitting in Malibu, just trying things that we didn't do last week, or new hobbies.
Yeah, and it's definitely difficult at first. I was going a bit stir crazy.
We both were.
I was like, I'm going to start gardening. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do all of this. And then eventually we both were just like, okay, let's watch 7 seasons of Vampire Diaries in 2 weeks, So,
which was done.
Which we did that too. And so I think there was just so many emotions that you had to go through. And what everyone realized at a certain point was like, it's okay to feel really discouraged when all of this is happening. And it's okay to feel lonely and miss your friends and miss your family. My family, I was stuck on the other side of the world from them. It was very overwhelming for a lot of people, including us. The first couple of months, it was just a mess. We had no idea what was going on. And then eventually we're like, okay, let's wake up, let's get coffee, let's make breakfast, and then let's do work for this amount of time. And then, so in the mornings, we would wake up and do work, whether that's like Zoom meetings or writing. And then with the afternoon, we would just try and do something fun. Like I started a herb garden. It was awesome. We did a lot of painting. We'd go for picnics, do little things to get out of the house. It was really important for us.
Yeah, I can't wait till things start to open up. But it's funny, there's going to be a transition also from doing all the things that we've learned to do to, possibly going on tour for you two.
I know. And we are really excited about that. Hopefully we can do that as soon as possible. But it's also going to be really weird because we've gotten so used to
virtual shows
and just living life at a very different level where we're a lot more.
We're home. We're constantly working we have a studio at home where we wake up, we make music every day. It would be weird.
It's going to be weird,
but very excited
to go out. And also we spent so much time with our pets and just been wearing pajamas for months. So it's definitely going to take a while to get used to it once everything goes back to normal. But I think the most exciting thing for us is going out and playing shows again.
Yeah, for me too. I mean, not that I play music, but to go to a live show is the most incredible thing.
Yeah, hopefully it's soon.
Yes, and I can't wait to see you two on stage. That's going to be really exciting. Is there anything else that you would like to say about mental health or about Bahari?
In regards to mental health, something that I experienced was having a really hard time acknowledging it or speaking out about it. And I think that people should know that no matter what you're going through, it's so scary to tell other people, but it's something that's very important to let the people around you know what's going on. Because when you're depressed, you feel as though no one could possibly understand and no one's there for you. But I promise you, once you tell the people that love you and care about you, it's a huge release, because then people are aware of that and they can take measures to get you the help that you need, or you can take that for yourself. So,
yeah. And we're really excited and we feel really lucky to be able to talk about these things and share music that gets to express things that we were scared to talk about. And there's a lot more that's coming in our music. We're really excited for people to hear that. And also some happy songs.
That's always nice to hear. Thank you, girls. You're so brave and talented. And, now that you've spoken out on mental health, you are a check your head superhero. I'm going to show you this. Do you see this?
Wow.
That's so cute.
That's so cute.
Isn't it cute? I just put these on our website. We have hoodies and t-shirts. But what's funny is that not only, are there superheroes that you would want to give this to, maybe to each other because you're each other's superheroes, but it feels good to wear because it reminds you every day that you're taking on daily challenges that oftentimes are not seen. And that's what it's like to have a mood disorder, like depression or anxiety. You're experiencing a personal battle that hopefully once you open up, you can have others come in and help you.
Yeah, definitely. We love that. We're going to go and order some. They're so cute. Thank you for having us. We love what you're doing, and we're super excited to listen to everything else that you're putting out.
Next, Kat Jensen and I talk about the Bahari interview and the benefits of journaling, a fun, creative way to express your emotions and an easy addition to your mental health toolkit. We also share information on naloxone, or Narcan, a medication used to stop an opioid overdose in its tracks. The Lucla Foundation is also offering free Narcan training on June 26, 2021 with a free Narcan kit given to everyone who participates. You can sign up for the class at lukeloveblog.org. We're here to talk about Bahari and their interview.
Oh, yeah. I really enjoyed that. Those girls, they're not only talented, but they're very introspective as far as getting in touch with what's going on with their feelings. And that's half the battle, is being able to recognize what's going on with us.
Well, the other thing that I really loved is that they first of all met because they were both going through depression, and they helped each other with that, and they bonded over that. And then they started writing about their depression and their feelings, and other people started to relate to that and they started to gain a following. So now they rely on each other for their mental health. They take care of each other. And they look after each other, and they understand what depression and anxiety and bipolar is, so they know what to look for, and they could speak for the other when the other is not able to maybe speak for themselves.
Well, and that's kind of the beauty of having a support system and an outlet to let your feelings and emotions flow, because just talking about things doesn't always work for people, especially when they're in the midst of an episode of depression. Usually the first thing we want to do when you're having any kind of mood disorder, or you feel like something's not right, is to recoil. I'm the same way. I will recoil. I'll get the hell out of here. I don't want to talk to anybody. And those are the times when you really need the most help to get out of yourself. But the automatic response is to isolate. So they've been able to recognize when that's happening to each other. But there are tons of support groups. I know on your website you've got several resources that are available, and that's wonderful.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a loving partner in your life, to be able to be that vulnerable and really share all of that, so they understand, you kind of have a partner in your mental health, and also like within your band. I mean, wouldn't that be wonderful to have somebody in your band, or even as a band, to recognize that mental health is important, and that if somebody is struggling, with a personal issue or with a mood disorder, that there are other people there that can understand and support you. The other thing I really liked is that they read about their condition. They educated themselves.
Oh, so important. That's so important right there. And they were able to talk to their bandmates about it too, so that everybody's on the same page. That's great.
Well, when a mood disorder is first happening to you, it's so confusing and it's frightening, but you have to be your own advocate, right? Because it's like the silent condition. So by researching, finding out solutions that might be good for you, these are things that need to be done even when we don't feel like it. And I think that's the struggle, is trying to find help and trying to reach out when you just don't feel like it.
Right. But yet it can be empowering too, if you allow yourself to educate yourself that way. Just say, I'm going to take 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to look this up. I'm going to see what's going on out there. Is there any great reading material? See if you could find a resource like NAMI, or somebody that might have articles on things that you want to research. That can be empowering. Sometimes it's feeling powerless that keeps us stuck. And it's a good idea to take that power back.
Yes. Just like that. Just like the Rage Against the Machine song, take the power back.
Take the power back. We do it, baby.
The other thing to help with our mood disorders and emotions in general is journaling.
I have an acronym for that one, and this one's pretty good because, what you're going to do when you're going to journal is you're going to write. So you're going to, let's say, W. What do you want to write about? Put a name to it. Don't worry about it. Just open up the page and say, what am I feeling? Let's write about something, but don't worry about what it truly has to be. You don't have to write a big, intricate story or anything like that. Just write. Just write. You have an R, reflect, breathe, try to focus. Even if it's just for 5 minutes. Just give yourself a little space to reflect on how you're feeling. I, investigate. Dive into your thoughts and labeling those feelings, getting in touch with those things. Time. Don't worry about the time. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 15 minutes. It could be an hour. Just take that time for yourself. Invest in yourself. Let it flow. Just let it flow, baby, and write down anything you need to. And then E would be exit. Reread what you've written. Give yourself a chance to do that. Reflect a bit, and then maybe write 1 or 2 sentences based on what you have just written, because that teaches your mind to reflect on what you've already put down.
That is a really great acronym to remember when you're doing it. And I love the whole free-flowing sort of thing. I think one of the best exercises that I had in English class, I had a teacher that said, we're going to take 5 minutes. We're going to write whatever is on our mind. Whatever that is, we're not going to judge it. We're just going to write and just not even think. And there's a freeing to that, to be able to put whatever's on your mind on the paper. And I mean, an example of that is just the other night, I couldn't sleep because I was worried about this personal issue that I'm going through. And I was angry and I was sad. I was disappointed and I could not go to sleep because all these thoughts were going through my head. So I wrote them on paper. And the great thing is that once it's on paper, it's somewhere else.
It controls a lot of those intrusive thoughts that tend to hit us at 2 a.m. or something, right? It can really help with that, where they're just so rude. Those thoughts, they just come right into your head and won't let you sleep or something like that. So it does give them a place to go.
And the other thing too is that when you write in a journal, it's between you and yourself. You're the only person that's going to be reading this, and it's confidential. So sometimes the thoughts that we have can scare us. Or you might think, I don't even want to tell my best friend that I'm feeling,
we all have those things.
You could be angry and say, I hate my sister or I hate my mother.
Yeah.
These are things that are not acceptable to say out loud, but you could say it in a journal. And as those feelings pass, you start to, I started to write down resolutions. What am I going to do? Who am I going to call and talk with about this to resolve this?
Great.
And your feelings start to change. And I know one thing that you mentioned to me was that you write on a continuous basis with your journals, and you start to see different chapters in your life, different themes. You could start to chart what your triggers might be.
Yes. Now, this is what I was going to point out that might break it down a little bit. When you get into using writing as therapy, you'll start to look at it where you may want to decide to use prompts to write off of, like, what's the happiest memory I can recall? And what feelings are attached to that memory? You could even say, what is one of the saddest memories that I have? And how was I feeling? And you can start to see what things trigger you. You can see into your feelings because, see, we have a tendency to not know what we're feeling. But when you can start focusing on that and you put it down into writing, it will start coming off the page to you. I started to see actual patterns. If you are working in therapy, you can use this to combine with other types of therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy or something like that too.
Well, one thing you mentioned was looking back and looking at difficult memories and looking at happy memories. And sometimes those past memories will help explain our present behavior. You know, sometimes people are confused, like, why did she act like that? Why did she say that? Or why does she have such a great connection with addiction? There are things in your past that can really explain what you're doing presently. And really explain to you why you may like or dislike certain things.
Yeah, it's all inside, and it's a matter of reaching it and getting it out. And that's what's so hard for us. We keep pushing things down. And I'm here to tell you that if you try to hold things in and you try to push them down, one day they're going to come roaring right back up like you just barf it right out of your face, and you're in trouble, because feelings, you cannot keep swallowing them. They just are going to eat you up.
They will rear their ugly head in some way, and usually it's sort of a dysfunctional way. too, that is not healthy. So we're trying to figure out healthy ways to get those feelings and emotions out, and also try to process those and try to understand what they're trying to tell us.
Exactly. And if you can't write, doodle, draw. I used to collage. I used to pull things out of magazines and just things that spoke to my feelings, and I'd write around them in order to say, what does that picture bring out for me? And it was very interesting later to go back and analyze what I was thinking at the time.
Natalia, Ruby, they both so artistic, and oftentimes that can come out in a journal. The first time I had gone through a depression, this was in my 20s, I remember drawing a picture of myself in a glass globe, just screaming and trying to get my feelings out, but I was trapped inside this glass globe, and outside of it were just a few words that were able to come out. And that kind of described how I felt when I was in the midst of this depression, that I wanted to express myself, but I wasn't able to. And sometimes sketches can describe how we feel even more so than words.
Exactly. I love the whole idea of a glass globe like that. And I mean, it paints such a perfect picture.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about is the opioid epidemic and overdoses. And she talked about the Luke Love Foundation that was created because her boyfriend passed away from a drug overdose. I wanted to talk a little bit about Narcan because it's something that's so important for opioid overdoses.
Yeah, it's an opioid receptor antagonist. You know, if you think of the receptors in your brain, they look like little speaker nodes, and they're capable of receiving messages. And an opioid antagonist will kind of blocks those receptors, so that receptor cannot attach to and process that opioid. There's been such an uptick of people having overdoses on opioids, and boy, it's really been bad since the pandemic, unfortunately. And it's been a rising concern. If you or someone has had some issues with opioids, that Narcan exists. I know it's available in a spray. It goes right up your nose. It's non-prescription. And if you suspect that someone's becoming unresponsive, this can be a life-saving measure. It's something you should have in your emergency kit.
Yes, exactly. And I wanted to show you, I actually have one of these emergency kits. If you can see.
Great.
And I got this when I was working at Homeless Healthcare Los Angeles, and they would give them out to people actually on the streets that they felt may be at risk of opioid overdoses. And inside, they would have the Narcan, and you can see it's in a spray. And usually, if you get it at the pharmacy, it comes in a 2-pack, because sometimes a person may need 2 sprays or additional sprays of the Narcan. It lasts about 30 to 90 minutes. So immediately, if somebody is overdosing, you've got to shake them to see if they're having any signs of overdose, like blue lips, or if they're choking or vomiting, any of those things. And if you're not sure, you can go ahead and use it. And it's not going to harm the person in any way. But it is only for opioids. So opioids like Percocet, fentanyl, Vicodin, morphine, heroin, oxycodone, Oxycontin, methadone, Tylenol with codeine is really common. These are all opioids, and it also comes with a CPR shield. This I thought is really important. There's a Good Samaritan law that people should know about. If you are a bystander or somebody that is going to save somebody with Narcan, there are protections so that there's no crime or arrest with the whole situation. So you want to look into that.
That might come across people's minds because they don't know if they want to get involved. They're afraid to get involved, or they don't know what to do. And that's great. Yeah, you can feel free to get to 911. This can give you the chance to get some real help to someone.
Exactly. You don't want to have to worry about that. And you're right. You can get it without a prescription in all states. It's usually covered by insurance. But if you don't have insurance, it's about $130 to $140 out of pocket, which really isn't too bad. it's there and if it saves a life. So they say that if you have any kind of opioids in your house, it's good to have it on hand, because we were talking about accidental overdoses when people might forget what they've taken, or people take it and they have a drink and there's a synergistic effect with a lot of other drugs. And also, like Nick Petty, we just talked with Nick Petty. He raided his father's medicine cabinet and got his old Percocet or opioids. And that happens all the time.
I know. It happens. And I mean, stuff happens. We're just trying to say that if there's a way to prevent these horrible things from happening, why not do it? Let's protect ourselves. Let's protect our loved ones. There's nothing wrong with having one of those kits on hand. Heaven forbid a child gets into the medicine cabinet, but to have the protection there and knowing you have it, that's just the best thing in the world, and that you could save a life.
Right. It's peace of mind.
Yeah.
And it's an easy thing to do.
I was going to mention also naltrexone, which is another type of antagonist that if you or someone might know that you've had problems with opioids, there are treatment facilities and through prescription, naltrexone is available after they're able to stabilize you and get you down off of these drugs, where it can help you with relapses or cravings for these types of drugs. So this stuff is available. You don't have to just sit there and say, well, I got to go cold turkey, because if you're trying to do that, then that addiction is going to be more powerful than you.
A big thank you to our musical guests, Ruby Carr and Natalia Panzarella of Bahari, and our special co-host musician, Kat Jensen. For more information on Bahari, visit bahari-music.com, follow Bahari on their socials @Bahari, and stay tuned for a clip of their new single, Jackie Kennedy. For more information on the Luke Love Foundation and their upcoming Narcan training, visit lukeloveblog.org. So until next time, be brave, ask for help, and be persistent in finding the mental help that you need.
When I know I can't fix it, and you know that I'm sorry, even though you were the one to go. Now I'm not making excuses, but it's hard for me to let go. We lost a lifetime, you and I, that's all I know. We lost a lifetime. I used to watch you fall asleep. I'm laying here, can barely breathe. I miss the way you'd laugh at me. No goodbye, no apologies.
Check Your Head podcast is kindly supported and partnered with Sweet Relief Musicians Fund, DBSA San Gabriel Valley, Earshot Media, and Lemon Tree Studios in Los Angeles. Visit checkyourheadpodcast.com, where we have over 100 solutions for mental help. Be our friends on social media @CheckYourHeadPodcast. Watch us on YouTube and support us with a kind donation on checkyourheadpodcast.com. Check Your Head Podcast is sponsored by a 501c3 nonprofit, with all donations being tax deductible. Thank you for your support, and thank you for listening.